Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically what it means to have your Mars in Libra or Mars in the 7th house. My name is Brandon. I've been doing quite a large series here where I've been going through every single planet and every single house and sign. So I've done everything up to Virgo in the 6th house, and there's going to be a playlist down below in the description that you're welcome to check out as well related to that specific series. If you have anything any planet or any thing within Aries to Virgo or within the 1st to 6th house, any of those videos are going to be down below as well. But this video in specific is going to be about Mars in Libra and Mars in the 7th house. So if you have your Mars in Libra, Mars in the 7th house, this video is for you. If you're also looking at this and you're like, what's going on? I don't know what's even happening right now. There's a video down below as well to kind of just get you a better idea of how to generate your birth chart so you can get a better, just kind of overarching understanding of what I'm talking about, right? And then also, of course, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what Mars means within astrology a little bit before any of this. So this is going to be kind of a little longer video because there's a lot of different things to be said about with Mars, specifically in Libra and in the 7th house. So the 7th house series is going to be a little bit interesting for a couple of different reasons, which I'll get into. And then finally, if you guys are interested in anything with me, you guys like how I talk, you guys like all this sorts of stuff, there's links down below for my website, my bookings, my offerings, stuff like that as well. So without further ado, let's get started with just specifically what it means that where your Mars placement is at within astrology. Okay, so Mars in astrology has a bunch of different connotations of what it works with. Mars primarily is going to be more related to our willpower, how we go after things. Think of our forward movement. It has a lot to do with how we accomplish our goals, what motivates us in the morning, what gets us going, all those sorts of things. And Mars in the natal chart is going to be a little bit of a more difficult energy because Mars is going to kind of aggravate, irritate, inspire, motivate in that specific house. And it might not be the most comfortable depending upon Mars placement. So Mars really wants to get us going, gets us up in the morning, and wants us to go after our goals. And depend upon the placement of Mars, Mars's sign, by house, the aspects, all these different layers, it's going to create this kind of layered story about what motivates this person. So Mars has a lot of different sorts of ways that it kind of functions. And it's dependent, once again, about what Mars is doing within the chart. So if Mars is in its home sign of either Aries or Scorpio, it is going to be considered, at home or in its domicile. It's going to be in the sign opposite of that, which it rules, which would be Mars in Libra, which is this video here today, or Mars in Taurus, which I already did that video. Those are considered to be Mars detriment, where Mars is not super comfortable in those rulerships. And then Mars is considered to be exalted in the sign of Capricorn and considered to be fallen in the sign of Cancer. So that is where an exaltation is where essentially that Mars is kind of brought even further up in the world, and Mars in a fall is considered to be a little bit more difficult to work with for different reasons. And if you have your Mars in fall in Cancer or in Aries or Taurus, check those videos out because I talk about that a lot there. And in this video, obviously considering this is a Mars in detriment video with Mars in Libra, we're going to talk about kind of unboxing a lot of that conversation here in a moment. But I really just wanted to bring up a lot about the Mars energy in the chart. It's a lot about our motivations, our inspiration. If you are a day chart, meaning that your sun is above the horizon, so you have the sun in either the 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th, or 7th house, you're going to have a little bit more of a difficult time with this Mars energy versus if you're born at night. So if you have your sun in the 1st or the 6th house, you're going to likely feel a lot more productive with this Mars. And that's based off of a concept of sect, which I won't be getting into today, but it's something that many astrologers speak about, so I definitely would recommend looking into that as well if you are interested in that specific concept there. Now, without further ado, let's go and talk about specifically what Mars does within the sign of Libra. Okay, so Mars in Libra. This is considered to be Mars in its detriment. And a lot of people, when you start talking about planets in detriment or fall or even exaltation, there is this kind of difficult conversation that is had, because when a planet is considered to be in detriment, it is always going to be opposite the sign that it rules, or opposite the sign that rules that planet. So with Mars ruling Aries and then in its sign opposite of that in Libra, it's not necessarily going to be that comfortable. Mars is in a Venusian sign, a sign ruled by Venus, not ruled by Mars. So Mars doesn't really like to have to think about Venus things, because Mars and Venus, they are complementary, but when they are forced to work together, there is this little bit of a disconnect or a disagreement quite often, right? And that's what we'll see with both Mars in a Venus ruled sign and Venus in a Martian ruled sign. We're going to see these sort of like disputes and difficulties a lot of things interpersonally as well, and that's partially because of, at least in this example, because Mars is in the sign of interpersonal relationships and all of those things. So Mars in Libra has a really unique gift. All Libra placements really do, and all of it is specifically about working within their partnership, working within and with their partner, and be motivated by their partner and kind of help lift them up. And there's a lot of beauty within the Mars in Libra placement that really brings to a lot of support to their partner, so long as they feel fairly compensated within that relationship. So their relationships and their relationship with the public can be a little bit kind of gritty and a little bit kind of more of a rougher kind of feel to it, because Libra is a very fair and balanced and very social sign. And when you put Mars in the sign of Libra, it kind of is always fighting for that. And it's always trying to find things to fight for sometimes. And sometimes, especially with the public, because Libra also rules the public. It doesn't just rule our interpersonal relationships and our marriage partners and things like that, but it rules, kind of just how we relate to the public in general, in our sales place and just in the world. And when Mars is in the sign opposite of the sign related to ourselves, Mars in Libra can be really kind of conflict prone, where they can almost be really reactive to a lot of people. They can have this kind of like intense response to a lot of different relationships, and their relationships can have these kind of like Martian qualities to them, where they're almost like fighting a lot within their relationships. And this I would see more with like Venus in a Martian sign than Mars in a Venusian sign. I know that's like really kind of splitting hairs there, but, and we'll get to this when we get to the Venus Scorpio stuff like next season, but with the Mars in Libra, there is this kind of quality of wanting to like almost have like makeup sex. Like that's kind of like the vibe of both Mars. When Mars and Venus are really together, there's almost this love for conflict, or this understanding that conflict really does create peace, or you can't have too much peace, you can't have too much conflict. And there's kind of this balancing act when we put Mars and Venus like forcibly together in a sign of the other, right? When Mars is in a Venus sign, Venus is in a Mars sign, there's a lot of these kind of conversations that are had around balancing what you're getting and what you're giving, right? And that's something that you'll see a lot with Libra in general. But when it comes to Mars, these people are really motivated by their own desire to be with someone, their own desire to support someone, their own desire to kind of like see the other side of the point of view. So this is where you'll see really great people that are really great for just conflict management, and helping mediate something. These are the people that may be that friend that their relationship friends come to that just got in an argument or having some dispute, and they'll come to that person. Because when it comes to Mars and Libra, a lot of what they're meant to experience a lot of the time is this kind of like conflict within relationships that they are then kind of consistently put in and consistently learning to navigate, so that they can essentially help motivate others or help navigate conflict, interpersonal, relational, contractual, even like business, contractual, or even legal kind of issues, right? Libra does also have this connection to law in a lot of ways. Libra and Jupiter both have that, and especially when we get to Jupiter and Libra, there'll be like a lot of specifics around that for that specific planet. But Mars in Libra also has this motivation for justice. It has this desire for justice, and this is where you could see people that are lawyers, that are judges, that are even in law enforcement. But you can also see people that are counselors, that are wanting to create a harmonious relationship, even in the workplace, even in some sort of manager experience. These people are great for like learning how to work with another person, right? Now, with Mars Libra, they can struggle because they can almost get overly irritated when they're not letting their needs be seen, or they're not letting themselves be heard or expressed. And that's something that Mars can kind of struggle with in Libra. Mars in Libra has such a people pleaser kind of energy because it wants to see the other person motivated and inspired, and it wants to lift them up and help them get their goals met. But Mars in Libra can be so much about the other person that it's not getting its own goals met and its own desires met and its own sort of like motivations met. And that's similar to what I had said with the Sun in Libra, which is funny enough another placement in Libra that doesn't really like to be in Libra. But when we see with the Sun in Libra and Mars in Libra, they're both this kind of like they're both like intrinsically and extrinsically motivated by their partner. They're very much wanted to have a life with their partner, or to have their partner be their center focus, right? They're motivated by what their partner is motivated by. They're inspired and they want to be seen in the same success as their partner, right? That's kind of the Sun Mars issue in a Libran sign, is it's so much about other people that this Mars Libra is almost exclusively motivated by their partner at some points in time, or their motivation to create the life for their partner or with their partner can be so passionate for them that they really want it. They really want that. But they're also at the same time, I almost guarantee it, with Mars Libra, they're getting pulled in other relational things as well. They're being asked to work in other relationships, and there's a lot about it with Mars and Libra. This is also similar to Mars in the 7th house, is about learning the different ways that people work and the different ways that people can be motivated and not be motivated and get through conflict and get through things. And Mars really is about helping teach this person how to motivate and work through and walk through conflict with someone, and also just different ways that people are interacting with you and understanding their motivations, their desires, their passions, right? What gets them up in the morning, what gets them going. That's what's really great about Libra placements, is there's a lot of focus around really working towards motivating the other person, working with the other person's side and point of view, and finding like a lot of compromise. That's what you'll see a lot with Libra. Libra is a very compromising kind of sign. And so when we put Mars here, it almost doesn't want to compromise, but it also at the same time really does want that. It's really strange because Mars is in conflict a lot of the time. Mars rules conflict, and in Libra, it doesn't want that. It wants peace. So the only way that Mars and Libra can really work things out is if they are motivated by conflict that creates peace, right? Knowing that conflict is necessary for, rebalancing the scales, rebalancing the situation, reassessing where you both stand. That's a really big thing with Mars and Libra. And a lot of the time, the relationships that they see in their lives are going to kind of have that kind of like grittiness to them. And it's going to be really interesting to see what Mars really wants to teach them, which a lot of the time it is about that kind of like impulse with other people and that reaction to other people. Because when we put any planet in Libra, it's going to be very relationally focused and therefore very like sensitive to other people, which is where the people pleasing part kind of comes in. But when we have Mars there, it's almost like they're reacting so quickly to other people, especially if we have the Mars with the moon or a Mars moon aspect. There's a lot of like reactionary stuff relative to relations, relative to just who they're talking to, what they're doing, who they're communicating with. There's almost this annoyance with people, like this kind of like this kind of underlying annoyance with people. But at the same time, when they find their people, the people that resonate with them, the people that they connect with, the people that they really, really want to connect with, they are really, really great people, and they are going to help inspire those people and help really put a lot of focus and energy towards their goals mixed with the other person. And when they are in a relationship, Mars Libra are just like, they're so focused on helping that other person. But the only issue is if it's Mars Libra doesn't focus on themselves, because that's what Mars wants. It wants to help itself and sustain itself and get better and get further in life. If Mars in Libra is not doing that, over time, they're going to build resentment, and then they're going to cause more conflict, and it's going to be a whole thing. So there's a lot of stuff that Mars and Libra, I would really urge to look at your Venus sign with this. Look to see where Venus is at within your chart, what else it's doing, and kind of how you're looking for peace with that. Because Mars and Libra has a lot of different stories that it can tell, a lot of different ways it can kind of act out, especially with Mars aspects, Venus aspects, different stuff that's going on. Of course, the Mars house is going to be a really big, important part of this. Because Mars and Libra just really wants to create some harmony with their partner, create some sort of peace and long-standing success with their partner or whoever they're working with, whoever interpersonally they're connected with. They're wanting to create harmony. And so when Mars is in Libra, it's about working towards that, but it's really important to understand the values that you're bringing to the relationship, the values that the relationship is giving you, and kind of making sure that there's a give and take, making sure there's a compromise, making sure that it's fair, making sure that it's just. It's a lot of what Mars really wants in Libra. Any Libra placement is going to tell you that. But Mars really is motivated by that. And I think so many people speak so negatively about this, but I think it's really about utilizing other people as fuel for your own goals, right? When we see anything in Libra, it's going to really just focus on the other. But then when it comes to Mars, it wants you to focus on you. So if you use the other people as a mirroring aspect, which is a lot of what we see a lot with Libra, is looking at the mirroring aspect and what someone else brings out in you, find those right people that motivate you in that right way, right? If you have someone that you know is going to want to go to the gym with you and you want to go to the gym today, go to them, right? You're almost motivated by those people you're with. And you're able to know what their motivations are to help you with your goals. That's a really big gift with Mars and Libra, is knowing who to go to help you through what problem and help you through what conflict or what issue. And that's where, once again, the Mars Libra has a really great support of others that they're able to do, because they're learning that process. They're learning how to help other people with their motivations and in turn help themselves. And so you can see a lot of social workers with this aspect. You can see a lot of people that are, like I said, therapists or marriage and family counselors, or people that are really working within like any Venusian field. You could see great artists and lawyers, and a lot of just kind of like spaces in modeling as well. You could see that because Libra is very this like model-esque kind of personality, like very social kind of thing. So Mars and Libra can be motivated by social kind of standing, social groups, and kind of being within a social environment to some degree. It really depends where Mars is at in the chart, of course, and of course what else is going on in the chart. So that's the Mars and Libra portion. If you guys have Mars and Libra and you have anything you want to say, I would love to hear it, because there's so much I want to kind of get into with this series here, and we're only halfway done and there's so much more to kind of talk about. I'm so excited to move into the next ones and kind of talk more about Scorpio, as that is my own sign, so there's a lot of stuff there to talk about. And yeah, if you guys like my stuff here, you guys are interested in this series, obviously check out the playlist down below, check out my channel as things kind of come out. And if you're interested in anything with me, my Instagram, all my socials are down below, feel free to check that out. But we are going to move in now to specifically talk about what Mars means in the 7th house. Okay, so we have Mars in the 7th house. So Mars in the 7th house is going to have a lot of focus around other people. And like I had said earlier, with Mars in the 7th house, this is a lot about being motivated and having a lot of really interesting relational dynamics. Now, something I want to kind of talk about in the 7th house series, and I realized this as I was going through the sun video, actually, is that a lot of specific placements we're going to go through in the 7th house are going to have kind of a little bit of more of an importance. And I try and kind of do these kind of organically as I go through them. But specifically, if you have your Mars in Libra in the 7th house, or your Mars in Taurus in the 7th house, those are going to be really, really, really important for you. The reason why I'm saying that is because your chart ruler is Mars, so you are either an Aries or Scorpio rising with Mars in the 7th house, meaning that you, being Mars, Aries or Scorpio are being placed in that 7th house. So I want to say before I get into anything else, because it eventually I will talk about like Mars in the 7th house related to like little overviews of each planet and stuff. But I wanted to kind of say that above anything else, because as I'm realizing that all of the Libra placement, all of the Libra 7th house ones are going to have this kind of angular kind of part. If you have an Aries rising, a Scorpio rising, and you have your Mars and Taurus in the 7th, or you have your Mars and Libra in the 7th, you are going to have a very, very, very big focus upon relationships. So I just want to get that out of there and just let that be known. It's going to make this placement a lot more important because you yourself are being placed in that 7th house. So there is going to be more of those kind of things I was talking about earlier, if you watched the Mars and Libra portion, about a lot of fighting within relationships, a lot of interpersonal conflict. And then this is where I will definitely see more of that kind of difficulty with meeting your own needs and kind of putting too much of yourself in a relationship, or putting too much of someone else in the relationship and not listening to yourself and not being guided by yourself or motivated by yourself. Those sorts of things can be seen with Mars and Taurus or Mars and Libra in that 7th house there. So I just want to get that out of the way first, because I've been realizing that's kind of a part of this. But now, anywho, put Mars in the 7th house, there's going to be a lot more focus upon really motivating other people, really desiring to be with someone, desiring to work with someone, desiring to kind of like build with someone, motivate someone, help someone through something. There's going to be some really intense public either scrutiny, public fights, public conflicts. There's going to be just a lot of kind of like action, right, in that specific 7th house. It can be of various different ways, right? Mars is going to play out a bunch of different ways depending upon what sign it's in, because Mars really wants to create some sort of motivation out of wherever it sits. And in the 7th house, it sits in the house of other people, the people that are literally your opposite, that are literally coming to you. And there's going to be conflict. There's going to be things you have to fight for. It's going to be things you have to kind of fight with. And so when we see Mars here, there can be, a lot of people in your life that are really, really kind of combative with you, that are almost really wanting to kind of fight you for no reason. And there's kind of these conflicts. And so when Mars is angular, meaning that it's in that 1st, 4th, 7th, or 10th house, it's strong. It is really strong. It's also at that sunset level. So if you think about like just the visual of a sunset, and you think about a planet being on that sunset, and in that regard, it's kind of like what we see other people to be in this example. Mars is there in this one. And so what that tends to show up as is that everyone is a conflict. Everyone is an issue. Everyone is fiery and combative and intense, right? And so that can be, obviously detrimental to a lot of people, because they're feeling like they always have to fight and be on guard and protect themselves in a lot of ways. But in the same vein, it can also make this person extremely great at like working in Martian fields, or working in a kind of like motivational sort of way with someone. These are great, great, great therapists, especially if Mars is in a water sign, even if it's in Cancer, where it's considered to be fallen. In the 7th house, there can be great, great, great support there. Mars in any water sign, I think there's really going to help that, because essentially what's happening with Mars in a water sign in the 7th house, there's this almost like overwhelming emotion that's being brought to you and kind of forced upon you from other people, where people are kind of pushing their like oversharing and trauma dumping on you. And then because of that, you're able to navigate other people really well. And that's the thing about Mars in the 7th. It wants you to learn, similarly to Mars and Libra, it wants you to learn how to navigate other people. But with the Mars placement, it's obviously going to change a little bit more of the themes of conflict, or how you handle the conflict. But overall, it's going to make you really, really great at handling any conflict over time as you learn your specific Mars placement. And that's why it's important to know the rest of your chart as well. But your Mars is going to really help you kind of see where those issues are coming from, and how to really resolve them, right? Like I had said earlier, with Mars just being in water, if Mars in a water sign, it's going to have this kind of emotional sensitivity to it. So leaning into that when people, are trauma dumping on you, for example, will help you navigate them a lot easier, and navigate these kind of like endless fights that you feel like you may be in, depending upon, the condition of your Mars and what else is going on in your chart. And so it is important to look at that, because there is a lot of different sorts of ways that conflict can be resolved. And that's the thing. Mars in the 7th is going to have conflict. Everyone has conflict. Conflict is a part of life. It is a part of progression. And that's something that Mars really is meant to teach us, that conflict and, going towards conflict and going towards, fighting for what you want and what you desire. Your desires are valid. Your desires are important. Mars wants you to know that. It wants you to understand the importance of anger and the expression of anger. That's another thing. Mars, I didn't mention this earlier with the Mars and Libra portion, but Mars in Libra and Mars in the 7th, they really have, like I said, if they don't express their own needs, there can be this outburst of anger. And so there is a lot about having healthy expressions of anger, learning how to let your anger out, learning how to be passionate about something, because Mars really does rule that passion, it rules that drive, it rules that ambition, it rules that kind of like fighting force. And Mars is really going to want you to really, really motivate yourself through what you've been, essentially what's been forced upon you in some sort of way. Because in the 7th house is really, it comes from outside of us. And that's where it feels like there's this outside force pushing us, motivating us, inspiring us, to do different things. And it's all about how we respond, how we react. And that's the thing with Mars on an angle. Any angle, but more prominently on that 1st and that 7th, and even on the 10th, because the 10th is public, not so much on the 4th, but it's about having like a control over that reaction, understanding when to react, understanding what you're reacting to and your impulse, right? Because Mars on the 7th is going to be really impulsive with people. It's gonna be like, nope, I don't want to deal with you, I'm cutting you off, I want to go towards you, you feel good, let's go. Like there's this very motivating factor with Mars on the 7th towards people and the right people, and also in the same way disconnecting from those people that you don't want to be with, disconnecting and cutting off, right? So Mars in the 7th can really easily cut off people that it doesn't want to be a part of, or doesn't want to work with, or doesn't want to connect to. And it's almost like, nope, over it, done, bye, goodbye. It kind of cuts those ties really easily, especially if Mars is in a really strong position there. Now, moving forward, let's talk about kind of how Mars does in different signs here, because Mars is going to do a lot of different things in different signs. So I kind of talked about Mars in a Venus ruled sign, so I'll kind of start with that one first, because Mars in Taurus and Mars in Libra, both of these are going to be your chart ruler. So very important for you to understand, very important for you to work with, very important for you to kind of manage your role in relationships, work on creating harmony, on creating peace, work with your values. If you have your Mars in Taurus, obviously check out that video. If you have Mars in Libra, this is your video too. So check this part out. This is all for you, because it's really important to know what specifically your motivations are, what your reactions are, what your impulse is. And when Mars is in Libra, it's about, when Mars is in a Venus ruled sign, it's about finding peace and finding harmony and finding a way to really allow yourself to bring something more to you, right? Meaning like how to relax, how to feel that you're valuable. And with Mars in a Venus ruled sign, its value comes from conflict, comes from being able to navigate that. And if the goal is, stability and foundation and money and balance and harmony, go towards that. That's going to help you. Your role is a lot more important if you have Mars in Taurus or Mars in Libra in the 7th house. I'm just being 100%. So working towards really motivating partners, finding motivating partners, find people that really inspire you, go towards that. That's going to help you quite a lot, more than not there. Now, Mars in a Martian ruled sign is going to be a little bit more on the more positive conflict. They're going to have a more positive relationship with conflict here. So Mars in Aries or Mars in Scorpio is going to have a very strong placement here, because when Mars is in its own sign, or any planet's in its own sign for that matter, I talk about this with a couple videos here in this series so far, but it makes for that lesson to be a little bit stronger. So the thing about Mars Aries and Mars Scorpio, you might think that they might not get in that many conflicts because Mars is in its own sign. But because Mars is in its own sign, it actually can create more conflict, because Mars doesn't have a Venus ruled sign, for example, to kind of bring it down to earth and bring it down to a sense of understanding of the other person. So when Mars is in a Mars sign, it doesn't really understand that. It's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna fight. So these are the ones where if Mars is in its own sign, the 7th house, you're going to likely create more conflict because that's what Mars wants. Mars wants to create conflict, and Mars and a strong Mars in the 7th is going to have conflict, but then also know how to resolve it. And it's going to really understand that a lot quicker because it's kind of pushing through that. But in the same vein, it's going to kind of create a lot more. So Mars in the 7th in general can have a lot of open enemies or just difficult relationships where they burn a lot of bridges and things like that. But Mars in a Martian ruled sign in the 7th can have more of a they know when they need to do it, but people might not want to keep working with them because of that for certain things, right? Not saying that every single Mars in 7th house is gonna have like terrible relationships. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Mars in Aries and Scorpio are almost really intentional with what they're doing, with when they're kind of cutting out conflicts. But the thing is, unless they have a really strong Venus as well, because that's a whole other conversation, or their 7th house ruler, which in this case will be Mars. But there's a lot of people here with Mars in the 7th in its own sign, Aries or Scorpio, where they're going to know that they're cutting off somebody, or they're needing to end something, or they need to have a conflict. But then by creating that conflict, it's then, they're cutting off that person, whatever it may be, it's then creating more conflict, right? So that's kind of what I mean when I say Mars is strong in the 7th, but it still can create more stuff. Like, it's doing the right thing, but it's still creating more to fight for, or more people to fight with, or more people that you might not realize you have now made enemies with, right? That might be part of this. But ultimately, this is great. This is probably one of the best ones for personal trainers and fitness enthusiasts and people that are motivating people to help them through fitness. So Mars in a Martian sign in the 7th is really great for fitness coaching. Like, that's probably the biggest one I would put out there for that. Yeah, especially because you are also a Venusian ruled sign too in this example. So you'd either be, a Libra rising, or you would be a Taurus rising, which once again, kind of to my point a little bit earlier about this Mars in the 7th house, which I don't know why I'm like harping on these Martian ruled Marses in the 7th, but it's important to look at your Venus for this one, because you are a Venus ruled sign, right? You are a Taurus or Libra rising. So it's important to look at specifically what your Venus is doing and how you can kind of mitigate that really strong Mars if you have your Mars in Aries or Scorpio in the 7th house. So moving on from that, because I'm just going to be going, Mars just want to talk a lot. So we had a whole conversation there. But anyway, Mars in a Mercurial sign. This is going to be a little bit more different, because Mars and Mercury this is really the combative kind of conversationalist. This is the motivational speaker, but motivational speaker that's kind of like more not philosophical, right? That's where you'll see more of like Mercury, Jupiter type of stuff. Mars with Mercury, Mars in Gemini, Mars in Virgo, they're both going to have this kind of like critical nature, right? So if we have a Mars in Virgo in the 7th, this could be someone that goes through and writes, a 20-page or 20-paragraph email to someone critiquing them on all their things because they want to improve them, right? If we have Mars in Gemini, it's similar, but Mars in Gemini is going to be more of, this one's a little tricky, because if you have Mars in Gemini in the 7th house, this is where you'll get into problems with gossiping, 100%. Gossiping, talking around person, having interpersonal, conversational, like a lot of mental and verbal disputes is just common for Mars and Gemini. If you have Mars and Gemini, check the video out. But or Mars and Virgo, because I made both those videos. But I would really think that if Mars was in a Mercurial sign in the 7th, there is this almost like mental battle that's always there, but it's this is where you would see a lot of good contract writers too, with people that would go through and advocate for people, or just find ways to manage someone's opinion in some sort of way, or maybe someone like, not really necessarily a ghostwriter, but someone who speaks on someone's behalf, right? So this is where you could see lawyers to some degree here. You could see some sort of, like I said, someone who like writes a contract for somebody is very common with Mars in the 7th house. But even with Mars here, it is still going to almost, it has to be something that is like really niche, like, I don't know, like it has to still be Martian, which is where it's a little bit of an issue, right? If we had Venus here, it'd be very different. Like Venus in Gemini or Venus in Virgo in the 7th, especially Venus in Gemini in the 7th, it'd be a little bit more easy to create create a treaty, to create some sort of like written kind of contract. But if you had Mars here, it's still going to want to create an issue or create a conflict or do something Martian. So this could be someone who, weirdly enough, like works in insurance, because like insurance is very much like a very clerical thing, like a clerical job, right? Or it could be someone who is, I don't know why I keep hearing this, but like someone who is like, it's so niche, but someone who is like writing orders or helping kind of like get invoices and kind of import export specifically for like guns and firearms and weapons and hot things, even like anything that may be hot. So think of like even like spices and anything that is just heat inducing can be something that Mars may do in 7th house. Really weird, but like making a contract around those things, writing something up, communicating something, talking things out. Like I said, Gemini is especially more so Gemini. Gemini is more of like the salesy person. So in the 7th with Mars, it's motivated by that. But it almost can it needs to have something that is Martian within that. So that's why I'm like, this is interesting, because I think that there's some really interesting writing, kind of motivational, kind of inspirational conversations. But also if it were to be like a career aspect with this, I would say that Mars and Gemini in the 7th is almost this like I said, like writing like a sales contract for like guns or knives or something really sharp and dangerous. Really weird. Anywho, moving on from that, Mars in a lunar sign in Cancer. This is going to be the one that is like really fighting for family. This you could see someone who has a really maternal instinct. Think of like the mother bear, which is very Mars Cancer, but also being able to really, really fight for that emotional security with someone. So you could see someone that is like running a restaurant or running something that creates safety. They want to create safety for that person. So once again, Mars and Cancer, like I said earlier, can be great for counselors in the 7th house. So there is some aspect there as well. But there is a sense with Mars and Cancer of creating some sense of home and safety. And then the 7th house, it's about finding that other person. So there is something there too. Real estate is always a Mars Cancer thing, Mars Taurus as well. But Mars Cancer in the 7th, this can be definitely like real estate contracts here, working within that field, working within like a family partnership as well, family business can be a part of that. Mars and Leo, this is going to be a strong one because Leo in the 7th is really strong here. And it wants to really see it wants to see itself do a lot of things. So this is where you could see, and I talked about this with Mars and Leo, so check that video out, but you could see like an overabundance of self-centeredness, where similar to Mars and Aries, and somewhat Mars and Scorpio, there's this kind of like over focus upon themselves and their role in conflict. And this is where with Mars in Leo, as well as kind of Mars and Gemini, there's almost this love of drama, and they kind of like to be the center of conflict. So there's something there that I would really urge Mars and Leo, if you have this in the 7th house, to really think about, because there's going to be these are like scandals. Like these are like, yeah, some like public scandal or something that tarnishes their name, or even just trying to like save face, save reputation. It's really weird. And they could get into like this. It's really strange. I normally love Mars in Leo. I do have some biases, and you can check that video out in specific, but there is almost this social climbing thing here with Mars and Leo, where they want to be with the person for the reasoning of the beauty that person can make them seem like or look like. Really interesting one here. But I think as well too, working with children, working with creative endeavors, this Mars Leo needs to surround themselves with creative people and people that help shower them with praise, help them feel motivated, help them be seen, help them kind of, this could be really good, really, really good for like stage managers, people that are helping artists and talent managers. Really great for that. It's not something that is super, it's like they're sharing their light with that person, and that's helping them motivate that. Mars and Leo is really interesting one here. It makes me really curious as how this is played out for those that have that placement, because it makes the relationship, I would think, really dramatic, and really like loud and bright in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of like seeing themselves in the partner and like then losing themselves, and there's some interesting identification with the partner stuff going on there. But anyway, that's kind of all seventh house stuff, but Leo in the seventh kind of has that a lot stronger. But anyway, Mars in a Jupiter ruled sign. So, Mars in Sag or in Pisces, obviously a foreign partner is very prominent with these here. This one is going to be a little bit more on the preacher side of things, where they're really wanting to teach their partner something. I kind of talked about this a little bit with the Sun in Sag and in Pisces in the seventh, but Mars here, it really just wants to find meaning in that relationship. So this is where Mars can do a little bit better, so long as they're not getting lost in the meaning that their partner is giving them, and they can kind of prescribe their own and find out their own and figure out their own, and kind of find their own kind of answers of why they're in that relationship. That's the thing I think a lot about with Mars in the seventh, is about why are you in that relationship? Why are you perpetuating or stagnating the relationship? That's a lot of what we'll see with Mars in the seventh, is it wants to never really be one, told what to do, but more importantly, it doesn't want to be stagnant. I think that's the thing with Mars in general in the seventh house, but in a Jupiter ruled sign, it's looking for that meaning behind that. So it's always searching for those things, searching for the meaning behind the next relationship or behind the partnership, or why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this? Why are we here? That's something that I think Mars in seventh really has, but Mars in Sagittarius or Mars in Pisces has a lot more than the average, because it's really desiring to find an answer as to why it's motivated towards these things, why it's motivated towards this person. So I like this one a little bit better. This feels like it's slightly mitigating and helping the situation, but it does still have this sort of like getting lost in the partner's kind of motivation thing that we'll kind of see through all the Libra seventh house things anyway. But Mars here really is really fighting for something to believe, and this is where you'll find they believe so deeply in their partner, that they might not see the reality of the situation. That's more so Mars and Pisces than anything else. And they're almost disillusioned or confused by that partner, and that's what they keep seeking that sort of answer, right? So really, really interesting, that one there. And then Mars in the Saturnian sign, so Mars in Capricorn and Mars in Aquarius. This is going to have more of a obviously serious tone to this. They could definitely do business with partnerships. This is where you'll see professional counselors, professional kind of support of others, conflict, prone people. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so it does quite well here. And it really enjoys having a goal with the partner. So this could definitely be working with the partner, similar to Mars in Cancer, but Mars in Cancer in the seventh is working with the family and working with really like sensitive things. Mars in Capricorn in the seventh is like, who am I working with? Why am I working with them? Let's have a conversation. Let's work things out. Let's, have this sort of like really strict kind of business kind of approach to things. And it works. They really want to make it work. Mars here can still have conflict, and it's still going to kind of have some sort of conflict at times, but it is also going to, similar to kind of what I was saying about Mars in Aries and Scorpio, it's still gonna kind of create conflict and create issues, but it's not necessarily gonna have like smooth sailing in relationships. It's not really gonna have that, but it will learn its lessons over time of like what it is that it's meant to do in relationships, what it kind of puts those pieces together. It's kind of both for Mars and Capricorn and Mars and Aquarius. They kind of both have to put themselves back together, relearn who they are through the people they're around and how those people have kind of imprinted on them and really help them get through certain times in their life. That's what I think a lot about with Mars in the seventh, is like certain people are going to come into your lives, especially with like Mars in Cancer. And any Mars and water is going to have this like deeper emotional imprint. But my point is like people come to your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I think Mars in the seventh is going to have cyclical times of people coming in and creating some sort of push in your life that pushes you towards your next level and helps you get through that time in your life. And I think Mars and Libra, Mars 7th house is great for that. They have such a gift in helping people get through the next obstacle, the next thing, because likely they had someone come into their life and help them through that same issue. And so Mars and Capricorn, Mars and Aquarius both have that. And that's where I think Mars and Capricorn really thrives, is because they've been able to kind of go through learning from each relationship as it comes in, and they want to give and kind of bring that wisdom to the next relationship and the next person and the next sort of like karma that comes to them, right? And then Mars and Aquarius, similarly, except this is where you are going to see a little bit more of the kind of eclectic, strange, kind of off the wall kind of people. These could definitely be online therapists, of course, as well. But I would see here more of like similar to what I was saying earlier, like kind of like bringing parts of yourself back together, seeing more of who you are through your other person. That's what the 7th house is about. It's about other people. It's about who we're looking at, who's looking at us, how they help us, how they help bring us back to who we are and remind us of what we want to do, who we want to be. And so Mars in the 7th is all about that. It's all about who you are, what you want to be, who you want to be, where you want to go, how you want to get there. And the people will come into your life and either help you with that, hinder you with that, but either way, they're helping you get on track. And that's what I love about the 7th house, is it's so focused upon really getting people on some sort of mission and on some sort of track, because Mars is right across from you. It's right across from you, or it's, you know, in the sign of the other person. And so it's really pushing you to see you and see what you're doing and see what you're not doing and see what they're doing and what they're not doing. And it kind of is that constant back and forth that ultimately brings you back to you and helps you balance over and over again what you're doing, what you want to do, and what your partner, what your business partner, what your, you know, whoever is doing, helping you get to the next step. That's a lot about what Mars wants in the 7th and in Libra. It wants to find people that help it get to its next location, its next goal, and help keeps it motivated and keeps it going, and really gives it fuel. And that's where Mars is it's a lot of fuel, it's a lot of speed, it's a lot of pushing, but that's what Mars wants. And so if you have Mars in the 7th, I would love to hear your story. There's so much here. I really love talking about this. Obviously, this is what I love to do. This brings me joy in so many different ways. This is such a fun series. It's been quite enjoyable just to go through this and just explain all of these one by one, because there's so many different combinations, and I know you guys get lost in the sauce on the internet here, but I just appreciate anyone and everyone that will watch this video. And I really hope even if this video helps one person, that's all I care about, because I want to ultimately inspire and help people know that there's answers out there to help you understand more of who you are and why you're here and what you're doing and those sorts of things. And if you love the way that I do readings and then I talk about this stuff, all my offerings are down below. And of course, all the videos I'm going to be doing are going to be coming out on this channel here. So you'll see a lot more of these kind of, you know, Mars through the houses, Venus through the houses, those sorts of things going on here. So just feel free to check those videos out in that playlist if you have anything else. And also if you have aspects, things like that, I have other offerings coming out. So many different things down below. I just appreciate you so much for being here and sitting through this. Hear me yap everywhere. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you guys soon.